Hello, everyone. Welcome to the lunch zone.
Yep, we're welcoming the people in the hallway, too. Thank you for joining us.
I am Nathan Humple. I'm a metadata librarian here at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee.
And I'm Kelly Breivik, a PhD student at the English department at UWM.
Okay, we are playing Parallax today. This is a monochromatic puzzle, first-person puzzle game.
Nice.
Let's start at the beginning, because I played this...
It's Thomas's turn today.
Okay, I played this, I don't know how many months ago, and don't remember the whole thing. Hello!
Hello! Who
Introduce
are you?
yourself.
No! I am no one. We'll do an Easter egg.
Fair
Game
enough.
of Thrones. No, I am Layla Bazeller. I'm a PhD candidate in the anthropology department.
Yeah, you are.
Here at UWM.
Can we close the door?
Thomas is coming down here.
Okay. Can we leave it ajar? Yeah.
Do you have a jar?
Oops.
Actually, you'll find out in about 2 hours.
Oh my god, no. What are you doing to us? I'm also a player on D&DMs.
Yup.
And it's gonna be a hell of a fucking session. Oh my
I
god.
hope so.
What are we playing today?
We're playing Parallax.
What is
this
what is
like-
that?
It's a puzzle game. Okay.
Now
So,
you're thinking with portals.
yes, it's very much like that. Except in black and white.
So it's just Portal in black and white.
Kind of.
Yeah, but you don't choose where the portals are here.
Right.
Well, that's boring.
Rough.
Well, screw it then. Yeah.
Nice.
So it's
Oh,
pretty
fascinating. Okay.
pretty simple.
I gotcha.
You have to figure out. Okay, yeah, that's a goal. I got that.
It's just so humid everywhere today, and I
It
just feel
is.
like I'm dripping, and it's gross.
Oh.
And so then I have to go back here. Oh, wait a minute.
Rough.
And
You always
now I'm on
find
the other side.
The weirdest puzzle games, Nathan.
This one I think I just got in like a bundle, I'm sure. I thought you were
It's the
snoring.
water
I'm like,
bottle.
what?
Oh, I'm
All
sorry.
right.
That was a weird. This water bottle makes weird sounds. Sorry, everyone. My deep need of hydration. Doesn't do it all the time.
Oh my god, that's
I
hilarious.
don't know, but it does it enough to make me laugh.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Right, so I have to turn this thing around again.
So I'm really enjoying the the choice of sound because this aesthetic visually is quite isolating, and then this kind of ambient, like almost underwater noise.
Yeah, this is very much one of those sort of like pure puzzle games. It's just you and the environment. There's no, as far as I know, there's no gesture towards story or
I'm gonna make one.
You're gonna make a
Yep.
story about this? Don't. You can't.
Too late.
So wait. Y'all call me out as soon as I walk in here to introduce myself, but not Thomas.
No.
No.
I get to ghost. Hi everyone, I'm Thomas Malaby. I'm from the Department of Anthropology here at UWM, and I may shift to the couch behind in a moment. We'll see.
I can't yell at him because he grades me.
I don't have an excuse.
I have found, as someone who DM'd for Thomas while he was a grader of mine, that you can in fact yell at him and it will be fine. You will still get an A.
Wait, what?
Okay, all right. So
It's
here's.
it's only if you yell at me that you can get it. That's what nobody really knew, and now the cat's out of the bag.
Oh. I don't know how I got A's during my master's then.
Maybe I could tell you were yelling at me on the inside. Wow, I love the aesthetic of this.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a trap somehow, but it wasn't.
No, well, this is
Just
still.
the fact that you were at that point and they were still adding in those portals as if there was something different than going straight.
Mm-hmm. Well, at this point, this is very much just introducing the concepts, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how you have to.
It's Portal in black and white.
Yeah.
That's how you have to play.
Without the gun.
Right, without the gun.
And the passive-aggressive AI.
Which really made Portal.
But if you want, I could be that passive-aggressive AI for
Aren't
you.
you already a
appreciate that, yeah.
passive-aggressive AI?
So I have to say this game makes me think of something totally cool that I learned years ago from a art exhibit here at the Milwaukee Art Museum. It was a traveling art exhibit that I'm sure, Kelly, if you didn't see it, I'm sure maybe you got it somewhere else or know of it. But this was Masters of American Comics. And it was just an incredible art exhibit. Oh, it was probably before, it was years, 12 years ago.
Okay.
But it was an amazing exhibit down at the Art Museum where they just took you through so many dimensions of the 20th century in American comics. Now, that's the place where I first learned about Nemo and Dreamland and comics like that, right? Mm-hmm. Which were in newspapers and were incredibly detailed, high resolution, as we would say right now. They were very fanciful. There was breaking of the frame. There's all these things that we like to imagine happen later, but actually they happened much earlier. And then there was this moment where you walk up to the wall and there's a bunch of Dick Tracy panels from the Dick Tracy series. And they made the point that while there had been newspaper printing presses in the 1890s and the early 2000s, and early 1900s, that could print Nemo and Dreamland and were incredibly sophisticated and blah, 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 because of the need for like metal in World War I, I think, or something like that, a lot of those were replaced with much simpler, much lower resolution newspaper printing technologies. Maybe partly because of volume, I don't know why, by the 30s, the 20s and 30s. So that Dick Tracy had this aesthetic of these bold, thick, simple lines that this reminds me of very much because of the material limitations. It spoke to the material limitations of its printing presses, which I thought was really cool. So then you look at something like this now, and nothing is super subtle or intricate in terms of the design language, right? It has a similar feel. It's very primary almost. It's like basic building blocks. It's kind of cool.
All right, so let's see here. Okay, so
I also like that there are certain things with almost undefined edges because they're defined in white, but when it's against a white background. Because that's certain thing that certain artists do that I really appreciate when they do their outline in not black. So they do it in a, like, if it's a tan person, they'll do it in a darker brown. And they'll do the outlines in different colors related to whatever color is, like, the base color.
Okay, that did not help.
I thought that other one was reversed, and now on this side it's not.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm very confused. Okay, so... Oh, okay. So first I have to go through here. Ah, crap. Whee!
I really thought you were going to fall here.
Yeah.
That's the thing I thought was going to happen.
Have faith. Alright, so first of all, I've got to go through here and then go back, so I'm up here. And then walk all the way over there. And then... that reverses that.
Definitely not yet getting the logic of this game.
Me neither. But that's why I don't play puzzle games.
So when you walk through a portal, what
Mhm.
determines the landscape that you see? Is it just a uniquely designed other landscape for this room?
Yes, there's 2 rooms.
Okay.
And so you walk through that, and on the other side, the other portal is going to be. There's another portal that's going to be on the other side of that. So
Yeah.
then you can walk back.
And my other question is the location of the portals relative to each other consistent across the 2 rooms?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so then I want.
And what does the sparkly thing mean? Is that where you're trying to get to?
Yes, that's the end goal. Yeah, and I've gotten to the second
Nice.
sort of world of this, and I'm not sure how many more elements are introduced. You know, that's the thing with puzzle games, right? You have to introduce new and more complex elements, and then kind of combine them to make them more and more difficult to parse out. Okay. So let's see here. So I need to get over there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there's a switch that controls that. And switch. Oh, I see. So this
What does
switch.
that eject button mean?
I think that's that's where you start.
I gotcha. Oh, I see. Oh, look at that.
Okay, so now what is this? Okay, so this switch will reverse that. What happens if I go back this way? That's not going to help me. But if I go through this
Go
way,
this way, yeah.
yeah, then I'll be able to hit this part. And then this part. And then let's see what happens. I think. Oh, okay. So then I'm gonna need to switch that back over
around,
there.
Yeah.
One of my pet peeves with puzzles that also require some sort of dexterity is when you solve the puzzle, but then you beef the jump.
Yes.
Leia is pointing at me very aggressively.
Yes,
From
because
what?
that is like literally my whole life with puzzle games. I figure out the puzzle, but I can't finish the puzzle because I'm not good enough at the control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and then the annoying thing is then you have to start all over again.
Right.
Or actually, I mean, and that's annoying, but then the other end of that is like, am I attempting the right dexterous thing? Or did I not get this puzzle right? You know?
So I like puzzle games where you never die.
Mm.
Appreciate them.
Okay, so
for the people that are not sitting in front of chat right now, I just appreciate how low level this bot is. Hi, I'm from atwitch.com. That is all.
Ooh, wow, you've got little accelerator ramps.
yeah. I think it's this game.
Oh boy, that's
That's
far.
why you want to be launched through for that.
True. This game has an interesting initial gameplay loop in terms. I'm always like, okay, what should I be aware of first here before attempting these puzzles? You know.
I'm gonna sit back, Thomas, if you want to grab this, just because of motion.
Because what?
issues.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
motion sickness from first person.
Oh, sure.
So.
We can switch if you want.
Nah, I think if I sit here, then I'll only be able to see the small screen, whereas I'll be tempted to look at the big screen from up front.
I like the dice tray.
Thank you.
Who made those?
I just bought them. I was going to make some of my own, but then I realized I don't have time for that.
Nobody got time.
All right.
I'm playing a bunch of Don't Starve.
Okay.
And I keep dying.
Yeah.
Or even when I have it on
From
easy
Frog
mode.
Rain.
Frog Rain, dude. Oh my god, that shit was insane. Just turn off Frog Rain. Just do it. Just get rid of it. Even after I have turned off almost all the big bads in that game, I still die. All the
It is hard. Don't Starve is very difficult. They don't. That company does not mess around.
It's fun though.
Okay, so whoops.
Nope.
Oh, that was nice.
You don't have to start the whole thing over.
Yeah, it doesn't look like that.
Well, that's good.
Okay, so okay. Oh, that doesn't help. Okay, all right. What if I go over here and press this little guy? I guess I have to go back this way. And then that doesn't help me either. Okay. I think. Okay, so I have to. Oh,
Where's the
it's
completion
over
thing?
there. So I need to go into the other dimension, and then.
Right, you need to be over there to wait.
Okay, so wait a minute. What happens if I?
Oh, that's interesting.
It would be a phenomenal linguistical, like, analysis of just like, no, you do. Wait.
No, I really
In-gamer
that's what I
language.
was trying to do with Cat's Mustache, is to have that sort of dialogue with two people of like, okay, what am I doing here? You know, I think it's really interesting how two people try to solve
Right.
puzzles, because it's really
So you have to do it out loud. You can't just like do it all up in your brain.
Yeah,
It
and
pushes you to be intersubjective.
yeah, and you try to be what the hell?
I don't understand how you're ever going to be able to get over there.
Yeah,
I'm a little
yeah,
confused.
I'm in that position right now.
Let's
so,
see where was the launch thing? Wasn't
Wait a
that in
We
here?
had two launch things.
there's
launch.
it's over there.
I'm
So
gonna hit the restroom quick. I'll be right back, guys.
So wait a minute. What if I think this is gonna flip. Okay, there we go. Because I just flipped that one and that one. So I'm not I'm like, I don't know if I could do this again. I just know that that's what I needed to do.
I missed it. What'd
So
you do?
when I'm trying to remember what I did. What the main problem was that there was one switch on the black dimension that only flipped one of those.
Yeah. One of the three.
But then on the other one, it flipped
All three.
all three. So what you needed to do was somehow get it into the position that when you got into the flipping all three, the two
Oh,
were
ones were facing out, and then
Yeah.
you're going from one to I see.
Okay. Ooh, oh boy. All
Okay,
right.
so if you had both of those going that way. No, but that
No,
because it depends on what's going on in the black enemy and the other side of it.
This probably needs to go the other way so that I can come out that way. And I need to be over there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the first thing I need to do, because I'm gonna need to get over there, is somehow flip that thing. So let's see what's on the other side here. Well, not much right now, but okay. So launch over here.
Oh.
Well, that doesn't do me any good.
If there was a switch,
Oh, okay. There's this.
is there a switch in here that will?
Okay. Oh, what is
Maybe
this?
that
switch?
one does the one on the other side, so that you can actually make the jump.
Yeah, so this is gonna flip that over there and that over here. And now there's a switch over here.
Oh yeah, here we
that's
go.
gonna
Yeah.
flip that one. And then I'm gonna need to flip it back. Get over here.
So where is this company out of that makes this? Do you know?
That I don't know. Kelly, do you mind looking up Parallax? Seeing what?
What was the question?
Where are they located?
Okay.
Made by Toasty Games, which is harder to find.
Okay. So I think if I switch these around and then go back this way and go through here, then I'll be good. Oh crap. How did that happen? That's not what I want.
It's weird. You can walk around this one on this side, but not on the other.
Right.
What does this switch do here?
That
Oh, that's
flips
that
that
thing.
up there. I thought that's... Oh, I know. I'm... Okay. I have to flip this thing. No, I don't.
I almost think that this might be... I mean, you've done a lot of these kinds of games in Cat's Mustache, so you'll know better than I do, but it just seems that the visual orientation and the overall sort of setup of the game, I think it's a little harder to play collaboratively. But let me put it this way. I think pathing through it and controlling the camera gives you a relatively, comparatively quick sense of
Yeah, no, it
the
does.
landscape. You know what I mean?
Well, and it takes, and I'm not sure I'm this person, but it takes somebody who's able to quickly and easily articulate their thoughts on a puzzle. And that's the problem,
Right.
you know, where you're just sort of like, but does it, is it, you know, where I'm kind of stuttering through what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's hard to find where they're located because at best they have a Twitter account. They do not have their own website.
Okay, so that...
That one's closed off that way now, right?
Oh, wait a minute. What's... There's... I think there's something on the other side there. Let me flip this switch here. Oh, I see what's going on. So, that's why I can get around this way. I have to come back
Right.
through here. And this switch
There you go.
is going to flip that.
Just that one on this
Right.
side.
Okay, there we go.
There, that works. Now you can take the jump. Is it this jump or the other jump that you need?
This one. And then... And then
yeah.
flip this.
I see, yeah.
Oh, crap. No, because I got to flip that one back. Oh, darn. Okay, so now... Okay, I got
You
it.
gotta do that one, go through, flip that other switch, then come back out and do what you just did.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Daniel Marquez asks, or says, this game feels very introspective and almost meditative in a sense.
Yeah, I can see that. I think that's an atmosphere that they're trying to... Oh, what the hell?
I love it.
I thought...
Now,
Wait a minute. I'm really confused.
yeah, certainly the music is consistent with that idea. The kind of the spare aesthetic.
I'm
It's certainly minimalist.
totally confused here. Oh, wait. Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. I got it. Here we go. Yeah, I think there's a couple different types of primarily puzzle games now, and early days in computer games would have puzzle games somewhat similar to this that were very much just purely puzzle games. Like Minesweeper. Tetris is another example, of course.
Right.
It doesn't need a story. It's just, here's the elements that you need, go to it.
Yeah.
But now I think there's a more expectation, I don't know what that just did, for puzzle games to have a story.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of interesting to see when a company decides not to bother with that and really just focus on the puzzles.
Yeah.
Okay, what am I doing here?
Well, I think one way of thinking about the changing games landscape, and it applies to digital games and to analog games. I don't know if this is going to make sense to say, but I'm going to try and articulate this, right? If in a broader political and cultural context, we're becoming interested again in the specifics of context, right? Like if modernity was really characterized by a lot of faith in like transcendent systems, kind of like this game, right? That stand as if they don't have any particular cultural content to them. They are universal in some sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting to look at games right now as actually having both of those moves going on at one time. A game like Gone Home is an extremely contextual game, both in terms of what you're doing in the game and the context, the broader social context it is in dialogue with, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas this game stands as if it's outside of time and cultural context, because of course no game ever is, but this one is wearing the clothes that says that it is, and it's almost like those two styles are almost emerging as more and more distinctive polar ends of gaming right now. Just a thought.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the company would say that they're trying to
be decontextual.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect they would.
Right.
Right.
Maybe they are. I don't know, and that would be definitely something to unpack. But I think the way that we often view these types of games can be seen as decontextualized, and when they're not, it's worth exploring why.
Right. Maybe part of the reason Portal was kind of extra cool is that it started out seeming like it was a decontextualized puzzle game almost,
right?
And then more and more of that context and commentary comes in as you play the game, and it gets richer and richer. And then by Portal 2, there's a whole commentary on modernity.
I think a good game that does that really well, I think, is Braid, because Braid, like, spoiler alert, it's like a 10-year-old game. Is like you start out, it's like all these just weird, like, esoteric puzzles about time and space, like kind of like this. It's got like pictures and stuff, and you can kind of see like some of its homages, but it really feels like it's atemporal. And then at the very end, it just hits you with this huge narrative, like in the closing moments, like no, this is actually like you're like, I don't remember, like a nuclear engineer doing all this stuff, and like this was all part of like the everything that's going on, and then it's just like suddenly like, I love that it like threw the context on you, because like it's like a game that refuses, once you've completed it, to just be that atemporal space that it presents itself as.
Right. Yeah, was that the basic move? Was it of Ender's Game or one different book like that? That was the idea. What was the one, or was it the other one, the movie Star Command or whatever it was called, where the kid is?
That's Ender's Game.
It is Ender's Game, where it's not revealed to him
That he's
early
actually
on
killing...
that he's actually
Spoiler
on the
alert.
bat. Yeah.
He's actually killing real people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that very much had kind of like Soylent Green is people.
Right.
Kind of move.
Yeah.
Well, then you kind of with those you kind of wonder like, is the whole? It's unfortunate when those the only thing about them is,
The end reveal.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's kind of the danger with.
I would generally agree with you, although I think in the right circumstances, relative to the right cultural moment, if that's kind of the only thing said, it can still kind of work and be like, you know, like the Soylent Green is people, right? That's originally a short story, and I think if you, in the context in which it was published, and if you never read it before, I think it could do that kind of shaking you out of your preconceptions kind of moment in a way, and make a big statement in that sense, you know, that maybe begins to look facile outside of that concept.
Yeah, I think that's maybe more the danger sometimes, is that if it has any sort of cultural cachet, it may be because of its cultural context, and as it goes on, then it becomes to feel less culturally relevant.
Right.
Which maybe isn't a bad thing. I mean, it's not, you know, it's not like it becomes useless at that point. It gives some insight into the cultural context of the time that it was written.
I mean, we've also had, like, I think now several conversations over the last couple of years, particularly on the Lunch Zone, about games that just ask you to play them. No context, nothing else. You're just playing them because they're there.
Right.
And then sometimes there's, like, a big reveal at the end, but kind of like... So, like, for Gone Home and Layers of Fear, I'm choosing between them right now. I'm going to use one of them to teach ethnographic thinking. Because there is so much context within, but, like, contained in a house, right? So, like,
Right.
you see all the things that students would be familiar with in a house. Even if they're not from America, they likely have seen kind of, like, a semi-rich person's house. Like, both of those houses are large. They have lots of rooms. They've got a lot going on. And so it means something to everyone. And there are things that they can ethnographically pick up in those games. Whereas I could maybe use this game for that in, like, a grad student class.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
we were
yeah.
really deep diving into, like,
Right.
how do you see culture
Yeah, where is the context
in,
here? Right.
you know, in this game? Because it does have it, and you
Yes.
can dissect it that way, and you can say, okay, like, so, like, what is the cultural milieu of this? Like, what is the culture behind the algorithms that create this, and what kind of, like, knowledge base do you need in order to even engage any of that in this game? But, like, you need some high level game theory and ethnographic understanding and all of that. Even like there are some grad students, say in like comp sci or non-humanities, non-social science based, possibly even psych, that like you wouldn't even be able to have that conversation
You will
about
not
this
have
game in
had
grad.
the training for that.
Right.
Yeah, it's true. I completely agree. I mean, because, yeah, this is a game. It's a good example of that, really. I think you're absolutely right. Just to look, you could look at just the representational language. You know, maybe trying to stand as acultural, but then unpack it and see how cultural it is. Or the logic of the puzzles themselves. Or the individual commitment to an individual player, what that says about an isolated kind of individual, and a whole bunch of cultural context about that. And puzzles and progression and levels and a whole bunch of things that are culturally situated. I think you're absolutely right, Leia. Maybe you could do it in like a kind of capstone undergrad class.
Maybe.
You know?
I think you could do it in a capstone of game theory, of a game theory course that included a lot of cultural training.
Yeah.
But I think even then, like, it would be hard. It'd be hard for students.
Yeah. I mean, for me, this is like exactly what we're talking about is like what I want to do.
Whoops.
Like when it comes to when I was doing like mostly film theory, I was always like on the aesthetic side. Like I was really interested in how like my master's thesis is on the music in Wong Kar-wai's films and how that relates to like feminine subjectivity. So it's like taking something that's like supposed to be like almost like acultural, like the music or something, and then trying to like situate it within the narrative. And it's useful for him because a lot of his music is diegetic, so it's like characters are choosing the music, so like it's easier to turn it back. But it's
trace those links.
But like that's always been like, I love that kind of analysis of like taking like what might be considered like the acultural or the forgotten like text and like revealing it as like the cultural thing that we have forgotten about. I think that that's like one of the most useful things we can do as academics.
Well, it's actually a nice little point of connection for the students and faculty involved in this collab, because I think that, you know, from the humanities and English side, those tools, those skills are extremely refined and powerful for doing exactly that. And then on the ethnographic or anthropological side, then that another sort of question alongside that, which is, okay, if we can unpack or delve into all these kind of cultural connections in the realm of representation and otherwise, we also then get to ask, well, then how is the game also, how is it played? Because how it's played may not be reducible to all of those mobilized or situated cultural meanings, right? And then things can get really interesting, because you can get people like doing other kinds of, you know, forms of play that are that digress from those narratives, that are queer play and other kinds of things like that.
Oops.
I often wonder, like companies that make single player games that on their face look like they should be played solo, are they actually expecting their players to be playing the game solo, or are they expecting them to be played with other people? Because there's such like a long culture of people playing games together where only one person, like what we're doing here, although for academics is a little off kind of the beaten path, for gamers it's actually right. Like that's what happens. Like I often was like, my introduction to games, particularly video games, was entirely in being the spectator, the person that watched and helped other people play games, because like all of my friends had been playing forever, and so they had the dexterity and could like make it look cool, but I was there to help them like figure out the other stuff.
Right. So I love this question. We have a PhD student here, Chris Cooley, who's finishing up his dissertation, and it's on World of Warcraft, a World of Warcraft guild made up of friends and family, and these intergenerational ties and learning and exactly a lot of this stuff. And his opening moment is actually something he witnessed between an 8-year-old kid and his 6-year-old brother, where the 8-year-old kid is setting up the game space at the console with the right cushions and the right this and the right that before he's going to teach his 6-year-old brother how to play this game. So I think you're right. Games are, in their playing, often more social than we sometimes imagine. But if we zoom out, I will say I think for a lot of commercial developers, especially in certain kinds of platforms, especially like mobile platforms, PC platforms primarily, I guess, I don't know. I would be willing to suspect that if we could magically have all the proper numbers appear before us, I think we might see that there's actually still just a massive amount of isolated gameplay.
Yeah, like
when you take the full picture into account, you know.
When you're people training for esports.
That people on their phones, people.
Well, mobile games are different too. Yeah. Like mobile games, you know, like the screen is so small, you likely wouldn't necessarily. You could, like, I've seen it happen. So actually, so this was one of the most interesting moments I've had just with mobile games in general. So it's Words with Friends, right? Which is something you play with other people. And lots of mobile games have that idea where you're playing with someone else, but not co-locally. Right. And it was these 3 kids on the bus, all with their phones out, playing Words with Friends, looking at each other's phones, playing Words with Friends together, co-locally in this space as they were going out to the bar. And it was like this fascinating moment of like, oh, like,
yeah.
I would be curious to see, like, being like the boardrooms and like, because like these are like really capitalist corporations, right? So to them, the bottom line is how many people are like purchasing the game, right? And so to them, that's probably not valued as an experience because that's still one sale if 4 people are enjoying it together.
Right. I'm so glad you said this because you look at Nintendo and they go the other way. They very noticeably, very explicitly go the other way. The Wii it was a left-hand turn from the dominant business model for consoles at the time for its competitors, much more toward a celebration even of that exactly the experience that you described, Leia, of people in a room, only one person is actually tossing the bowling ball, but everybody is around them, you know. And that's I think it's a swimming upstream kind of move relative to the economics involved, but maybe they might say betting on the longer game.
And I'm not saying that people don't play solo games, right?
Yeah.
Like
but that is being ignored.
But you can play like solo games socially.
Right.
Like I remember we were playing Until Dawn. It was 13 of us hanging around playing a solo choose your own adventure game.
Right. And what does it, I mean, and also what does it mean to play a solo game, but then digest that game with other people who have also played that solo game together? Like, is that a part of the play? What does that mean for the game? How does it change the way you play next time? How does it change the way you continue playing solely?
Like the book club experience. Almost,
right. Like, I mean, Dragon Age, I'm like at the final boss and just want to, I can't
be done with it.
I can't kill the damn dragon. But anyway,
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler! There's a dragon in Dragon Age. But then I found a group of people who none of us knew that the other people played Dragon Age, but then it turned out like this game that I'm in was based off of Dragon Age Origins, like the guy who built the campaign. It was very much in that vein, and so then we got on, like, we talk about Dragon Age all the time now, and so what does that, like, and it changed my perception of the play experience that I had, and is going to change how I play, like, Inquisition when I move on to the next section. And how does all of the social stuff factor into what we call an experience as solo play? And again, that doesn't mean there aren't people who play and then never talk about it with anyone, but like.
But you know, it's another way of making a very just big point, right? We tend to imagine modern selves as unencumbered, right? But in fact, they're encumbered. They're encumbered by all these social ties and experiences and connections, and the sort of tendency to forget that is rampant, and it creates methodological challenges. How do we methodologically capture all of this stuff that tends to be so evanescent? I mean, think about how the world we live in is built to track and recognize us as individuals, you know, not as these kind of informal, practical encounters where someone shows you something and they're over your shoulder or influencing how you play, or things like, oh yeah, no, my campaign was inspired by the way that, you know, how does that never shows up anywhere? This
is kind of off games a little bit, but ties to kind of some conversations I've been having with other millennials and Gen Xers and Gen Zs who like there's this whole idea that like people are just too sensitive now, right? Like you can't, like, people are all like, you have to be, you know, PC culture and all of that kind of stuff where you have to, you know, just not be insulting. And I think, and that's a problem for some people. But the way that I hear them talking about it in the conversations I've been having is like, what did we think, like, often the kind of isolationism is blamed on technology, and what we've been talking about is like this idea that for the last however many hundreds of years since, you know, like we came over and took over this land from the Native Americans, we've been on this kick of individualism. And what did we think was going to happen after so many hundreds of years of propagating the idea of individualism, and then get to now, where is it the technology's fault, is it the phone, or is it just that we have been doing this and supporting this for so long? And then to bring that back to PC culture, like the idea that now the like the last 3 generations are seeing just how problematic that individual culture can become, and so we're doing things we're trying to like get back into what does it mean to be doing things together and to make social ties and push against that individualization through things like games or through things like saying no, maybe we should just like care about each other more often. Like maybe words are violence, to get into your guys' Austin discussion for Friday. And like, and how does that all play together? I don't know.
Wait,
Anyway,
why is your thing spinning now? Sorry, that's not. I kind of derailed the conversation.
Oh, you
it's
did
alright.
it.
No.
Nice.
There you go. Ethan?
Well, it's, behind a lot of what you're saying.
One thing I just want to mention, because it hasn't been brought up and I just noticed it, it's interesting, there's actions. In order to get a perfect score, you have to have the number of actions below the par there. And so I wasted a lot of actions in that, going back and forth, trying to replicate what I thought was the state I needed to be in. But it's not often that I see that sort of score being the measure of what, it's not time here, I don't think. It's the number of actions that you take. So you can take as much time as possible, but you have to keep down what you're doing.
And that's capitalism creeping in, right? Because that's efficiency, right? It's like, how can you be the most efficient? I'm thinking back to the Corrections, I think, by Franzen, where like the brother is like the efficiency guy, right? And like he like is all about how can I make this business, right? Like be as efficient as possible.
That's right.
And so like you see like there's culture. I guess all I'm saying is like that scorekeeping system is cultural. It's a cultural game.
Well, there's, and then what connects to that too is the bureaucracy is really good at generating consistent procedures, right? Capitalism is really good at generating efficiencies, and when you combine those things together, you get really, really powerful and productive institutions. But that's only true as long as circumstances don't change, right? In other words, so bureaucracy is really good at creating consistent operations, assuming the conditions don't change. And then when the conditions change, then you can have a corporation that used to be effectively a monopoly, something like IBM, all because nobody thought to write property of IBM Corporation in the BIOS of the first PC, lose all of the territory of the PC, and basically never be the same company it was again, right? So the only reason I bring all that up is think about the way context creeps in there, that the world as a changing dynamic place creeps into the broader context. You look at a game like this, everything is always the same, right? I mean, there's that's one way of talking about how the game sort of presents maybe kind of a modern myth of a sort of timeless, orderly reality, right? And it's just you and this system, and mastery of it is all you need to worry about.
Well, and there is always an answer.
Yes. Right.
And there's always the best answer.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, then, in a lot of ways, that's the myth of a computer, right? I mean, there is a way to solve it in terms of using this system that is off and on, essentially.
Yeah.
That's kind of. I think you see echoes of that. Oh, that's interesting. I understand why the reticle was spinning.
Yeah,
that means that something is being done in the system.
Yeah, and you have to wait on it.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, I suppose, it's like the loading sign.
Yeah. But anyway, I always find it fascinating how the architecture of computers are sort of like ingrained in our dialogue with computers in some way.
And not only that, our dialogue with ourselves is this incredible piece that was written on Aeon maybe close to 10 years ago now by the neuropsychologist Robert Epstein. And I think the title of it is "Your Brain is Not a Computer." I love it because he's effectively showing that we have succumbed to the temptation of taking something that we think that is this rich construct we've made, and then projecting it back as our idea of how our brains actually work when our brains are not computer.
Well, I mean, it's fascinating, right? That we have this idea of like what is man-made and what is natural, and those being completely different things. So it doesn't surprise me that we have said, "Oh, the brain is like a computer," because a computer is man-made. It's unnatural. It's clean. It's scientific, and those are all things that we want human beings to be.
Orderly,
and separates us from
less
like,
messy,
the animal,
less chaotic,
self, right? Yeah, so it's
continuous versus discontinuous,
right? Like
unencumbered.
it doesn't surprise me at all that took like that language crept into particularly American like linguistical structures very, very quickly because it fits perfectly into how we see ourselves as opposed to the natural world.
Right. You know, and for those Nietzsche fans out there, we could be just as well be framing this in terms of the Apollonian versus Dionysian distinction. Keeps coming up, the orderly versus the kind of messy and contingent.
What the hell did I just do?
To return to one of the, we were talking before about like solo games and playing culturally. I think like you'd find it really interesting the way me and my best friends we play horror games. I don't like horror games. My wife doesn't like horror games. Alec doesn't like horror games really. I don't think Aiden has ever played a horror game, but we all get together to watch someone play a horror game like once a month. Like we will sit down with the new horror game. Like last weekend we played Blair Witch, the new Blair Witch game, which came out in August, and like we'll sit down and we'll just be scared to it's almost like the horror movie experience of like being scared together and like the jump scares and everything. And Alec, who I don't think plays horror games at all, I can't recall him ever espousing and enjoying them on his own, is almost always the player in these instances too, which also can create interesting conflict because like I asked like, oh yeah, why does Alec always play or something like that on Friday, and they're like, well, he's the best gamer, and I was like, and then, I was like, what? I feel like I'm good too, like it's funny, just we play different styles of games. Like I'm really good at like StarCraft, and Alec like really likes fighting games or something like that. And so it's like it's interesting that they just instantly like he's like the better one when it's like really contingent on what style of game it is, right?
Well, and like horror games too. Like there is a so there are lots of different styles of horror games, obviously, but all like being able to play horror games is actually really difficult. Like the first time I ever played Outlast, you like, so you're outside, you're a reporter, and you have to go into this mental hospital that has been like taken over or whatever, right? And so you like have to find a way in. And the way that you find your way in is you have to like climb up this stuff and then find a window, and then as soon as you go into this dark room, like the light is on, you go in, the light turns off, and then the music starts. And you know that when the music starts in that game, you're about to be like chased through some crazy stuff. And I just had to like hop in and out of that window for about a half hour before I could make myself actually like get in the building because I was so freaked out by it. And so it's a really different, like, being able to say, okay, no matter what happens, no matter how scared I am, my fingers are still gonna do the stuff.
Oh yeah.
Is like it's just a really different style of play, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely. And it's like when I was like in 7th grade, I think, I got Resident Evil 4. I've been looking forward to it. I pre-ordered the game. So but the beginning of the game was so scary. Like, I was so excited to play the game, and like I got through like 30 minutes of the game, like up until like leading up to the village. I was just so terrified. I didn't play that game for like 6 months. Like,
wow!
I was so excited. I got like the collector's edition and everything, and I was like, okay, I'll play you later. And then it was like, I was finally like 6 months later, like, I bought this. I guess I should play it. And it's fun. I'm like, I get a new game like every 3 or 4 months. So to like put a new game down for that long, I must have been really scared.
Yeah.
I remember I was very excited for that game as well, and I was the one with the Wii, so I invited my friend over to play together. And we actually just handed it off when things got too scary for us. Like when we got ambushed, we just like fumbled.
Your turn.
Yep.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I know. I almost
How
want
to
to
do
start
this.
this over again just because I'm
Well, you're at 18 actions, so starting over is a good thing.
yeah, 18 out of 7. Okay,
So
I
there's
need
your
to-
goal. So tell me what you know, because I haven't been playing a whole bunch of these levels. Tell me what the conditions are. Obviously, it's not walking through that portal. that you need, right?
Well, no,
that
I need to
portal, when
walk
it's-
through. I need to walk through that portal on the other side, right?
But on the other side, in the white, or what are we calling,
Black.
black version of the world,
The negative.
it's just a stub of a platform, right? So
Right.
what is your approach?
But I've got. So what I need to do is that needs to be on the other side, and I need to be on that platform so I can launch over there, go, and then go through the portal, and come out and go to the goal, right? So that switch switches that over.
Got every mow and shoes.
I know I did. But
Would the
I'm so excited to mow the
Okay.
whole lawn now.
So
I guess I'm confused because I haven't played the game enough. But like, whenever you walk through the portal in the black world here, it will be a stub.
That and mopping are my two favorite hobbies.
You won't be able to continue around to the win condition. Right?
no. If I walk through there, see the path on the other side
Yeah.
of this, that's where I want to be.
I know, but you have to walk through there in the white side of the world.
Right, and this white side, what I need to do is I need to launch over here with this thing out of the way. Because if I
Yeah.
launch now, I'm going to
Yeah.
run right into it. And so,
So you launch over in the black side of the world.
yes.
Oh, I got you. But with it like this, because you can go through it right now, and then you'll go back into the
Right.
white side. I see what you mean.
And so,
So just getting that thing flipped is what you're trying to do.
right. And so now I'm over, and so this one flips both of those. And then I can get to the switch to flip that. But when I get back
Yeah, where's the switch to flip the thing?
in the
Over there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
okay.
This is also social gaming.
Well, when you're talking about you were saying that your main experience with social gaming was watching other people play games, and maybe that doesn't happen a lot. I don't know, but it definitely happened to me in high school. I played, my friend and I would sit down, and he would play Final Fantasy, and I would watch him play Final Fantasy. And it was really just a communal thing because there's no real way to play two-player Final Fantasy. We might switch off occasionally, but it was really just one person watching the other person.
Spam.
And I think
And we
that's
respond.
definitely a way that some
Yeah,
people
it's-
play,
I just was curious about the interaction today.
Okay, so but now I'm stuck here, so that was a wasted action.
I have faith in you.
It's only a wasted action in the structure of efficiency that the game proposes.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it's just trying to figure out the thing.
right.
Well, and that's also an interesting question, right? Like, which mechanics do you take seriously? Like, which ones do you care about? Which ones don't you care about? And how does that,
Well,
manifest?
Yeah.
I think it asks the question of why you're playing the game, and some people play games to master the game. Some people most people are going to play the game to try and finish it, or get to the point that they're frustrated with it and never pick it up again.
Or to
you
not
know.
think about something else going on in their life.
That's true. Yeah.
Like, and I guess, earlier we were using the expression social gaming, and it led me to think this is a nice example right now of the fact that we're never not social gaming, right? Like, when this question, which of the mechanics do we care about? Why? Which are we going to pay attention to?
Yeah.
Are we going to try and do it in a short amount of time? Are we going to try and do it in a small amount of actions? Are we not going to care? Those are all themselves situated. They come from some cultural point of view,
What's valuable, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
and it's only the apparent separability or isolability of the individual that makes us imagine that we can be in a big, gigantic black or white bubble.
Yeah.
Literally speaking.
And we're always engaging with the designers, right?
Yes,
There's
that's
never
right.
a
It's
time
always
when
social
we're
in
not
that. Yeah,
engaging with the designers.
making guesses about their point of view.
Right, or like, like the common question for myself in puzzle games is, all right, so how did they want me to solve this? I
Yeah.
always think that's particularly interesting for Portal and Portal-like games, is going and watching other people play Portal and seeing how they solve the puzzles.
Yeah.
Because it's not always, it's very often not the
Yeah.
way that I solved it.
Yeah, it leads me to realize. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm just thinking back to Devil Daggers, which is not even a puzzle game, but the way we were playing it was radically different from the way that
Bit the nerd.
Yeah.
Yeah, the master was doing it. Whoever they were. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna be done with this.
Okay.
I think I've resigned. What I was gonna say is I think I've resigned myself to the fact that I'm not gonna be able to finish this one.
It's also 1 o'clock. So.
Yeah.
Right.
We do have one last comment from Daniel who says, the YouTube channel Girlfriend Reviews provides an interesting commentary on social gaming from the perspective of the couch spectator.
Yeah, that's a great...
Can you briefly explain Girlfriend Reviews?
It's pretty much the girlfriend watches her boyfriend play, and then she gives a review about different aspects of the game and what's fun about it to spectate. And
that's really interesting.
Like my favorite one is the Telltale Walking Dead games, and it's quite funny as well.
Yeah, it's very comedic. It's easy to watch.
For a whole year, my boyfriend warned me that once Breath of the Wild came out, he was going to need somewhere between 50 and 1,000 hours to play it. Wow, I don't blame him. He claimed it was going to be the greatest game of all time, but I was skeptical because, according to him, The Witcher 3, GOAT. BioShock, GOAT. Super Mario Bros. 3, GOAT.
That's the magic flute! Use it!
It's called a warp whistle. I think it was easy for him to label so many games as the greatest because it was such a hard decision, but not anymore. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is by far my boyfriend's favorite video game, and something much more. He and Zelda are the same age. They grew up together, got kinda edgy in their teens, and didn't know what to do with themselves after college.
Everything went really well in our rehearsals. You guys need to turn off all your wireless devices.
So this isn't a review of Breath of the Wild. This is a review of what it's like to live with someone whose oldest friend is a video game. I was totally expecting the find a dungeon, get the item, beat the boss, and repeat formula, because, you know, that's what Zelda's been doing since 1991.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
But just seconds after Link gets out of his tanning bed, you realize the game is going to be a breath of fresh air. This first shot of Hyrule was like...
Everything the light touches is our kingdom.
And it's just a tiny glimpse of the overworld. For comparison, here's Breath of the Wild, here's Twilight Princess, and here's your mom's underwear. Within just a few hours, Link is given all the tools he needs to fully explore the map, and they're some of the most innovative he's ever had. People are still figuring out insane ways to solve puzzles using them. Or if you're this guy from Reddit, skip the entire game. Link can manipulate time and kinetic energy with stasis, become Magneto with magnesis,
mankind has always feared what it doesn't understand.
And after 30 years, he can finally jump with his knees. But the thing that separates Breath of the Wild...
And I want to know what you guys are saying.
Sorry about that. I thought I was just on the channel page and then started playing audio. I had no idea. See, this is what happens when you have me trying to man the chat.
Let me just stick up. Okay, I'm here now.
So. And it's past 1 o'clock.
Yeah, we're actually
just
all
about to sign off.
It's interesting. What's interesting about puzzle games, I think, is that you're trying to derive those rules as you're playing the game. Because good puzzle games, they may have basic rules across all of them, but they're also teaching you the rules of the game so that you're able to move through it, and you're building a language that allows you to solve the puzzles, right? Whereas a more Twitch-style game, if you come into it knowing the rules right off the bat, you may have more pleasure playing the game because you don't have to be frustrated with, you know, the
most
easiest,
basic,
the
most basic thing.
The easiest example being that you move from left to right in a side scroller, like.
Yeah. I didn't know that. One of the first puzzle games I ever had allowed you to move left, and I went left first.
Right.
And then ran into a dead end, and I was like, and found like actually a hidden gem.
Yeah.
That you only find if you go left first.
Because it's so unusual to even think about that.
But I was just like, I guess I'll go left.
Well,
like,
as you get toward the puzzle end of the spectrum, what really starts to happen, or what seems to be happening, is much more of a conversation between you and another person's point of view.
Yeah.
You know, so that if all games, sometimes the way I think about it, you know, there's an element of games that you see in things like poker, right? Where part of what's contingent about the situation is the guess you're making about somebody else's point of view. Well, what cards do they have? What resources do they have? You know, how much do they have to bet really today or whatever? Well, puzzle games really highlight that.
Yeah.
You know, it's Will Shortz for the New York Times, if I keep doing his crossword puzzles, do I start to know Will Shortz, right? Do I start to gain some idea about the way he approaches making crossword puzzles, right? That's essentially what we're talking about here.
But I feel like in games like Witcher, for instance, right? Like, they have a language that they're already speaking. I like puzzle games because they teach me how to go about doing the things that they're asking me to do, whereas, like, I watch someone play Witcher and I'm like, what? How do you even know where
you're going?
Like, what is this? Like, and when I try to sit down and play it, it's like really frustrating. Which is why generally for like those AAA games, it takes me like 3 or 4 times of starting it before I get more than a couple of hours in.
Which points itself to, what is the position of privileged leisure time the people playing a lot of those AAA titles are. They can devote 12 hours on any given weekend day.
Yeah, I think about that a lot when I'm going to start a game. I'm going to start a new Zelda game or something, and I'm like, I don't have time for this. Like, I've got kids.
Right. That's welcome to my world. This is where Nathan and I are very much in that.
One point I was just thinking about when we were talking about the sort of dialogue between designer and the player, a counterexample in terms of puzzle games, and I don't know if it's a puzzle game, I've been thinking about Tetris a bit, and that isn't necessarily a dialogue between the designer and the player, because the designer has set conditions where emergent puzzles come up.
Right. I don't think of it as a puzzle game.
It's
right.
It's
In other words,
game.
Right. The closer you get to the puzzles part of the constellation, right, set solutions, is what I identify with that. There's one way to fill out the crossword, and if there's a way in which, no, this is different, this pair of words could be different, that's really unusual. That's kind of not supposed to be. Whereas if an arcade type game is much more emergent, right? It's happening on the fly.
A puzzle game.
Right. So there are always puzzle elements potentially, right? So Portal has typically one way of solving the problem, right? Now sometimes there's more than one, right? But it has the puzzle element that the designer makes any given level knowing that there is a solution.
Right.
Or even multiples. They may know
there's multiple too. It's true. Yeah. But so I don't want to draw hard and fast distinctions.
Right.
I'm just saying, as you get toward the idea of a set solution, especially something pretty rigid like the constraints of a crossword puzzle, right? You're really getting into just this idea of me trying to make kind of guesses about what this person is trying to do.
And Tetris.
Maybe that's why designers like Jonathan Blow prefer the puzzle genre, because I have this feeling that nowadays it's likely to you have these big game designers that present themselves as artists, in a kind of genius way, and they are usually designing puzzle games. So I think there is a relation.
There's a relationship there.
That's an interesting.
They certainly have.
Interesting.
More control in that way. Isn't it interesting? We're in a kind of celebrity game designer era, and that it would lend itself to particular kinds of games that really do bring you into that kind of relationship with. Whether it's one or more people, but
you have more control over the message.
Right.
That this, and even you look at Braid's or Jonathan Blow's, The Witness, and there's a very direct these are the puzzles that you assume he has a solution for, although those sometimes have different solutions. But here's the puzzle that has a solution that he has in mind, but then the sort of story elements or thematic elements that are kind of pushed to the side are more ambient and discoverable. But even that choice is a communication between the player and between the creator and the player to say, discover these in your own way and sort of come to a conclusion. Okay, we are past time.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
That was a great conversation.
It was.